Hi, I'm Brooke Wanser. I'm the reporter for the Franklin homepage, and I'm here today with...
Michael Phillips. I'm running for Alderman in Ward 1.
So, Michael, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and why you want to run for Alderman?
Well, the short answer about why I want to run is because I really feel that serving others is what I've been called to do. I served the nation for 20 years in the Army, and since I've been here, the best if I can, have been serving the community, and I want to continue to represent the community and be the voice of the people in City Hall. Grew up in Arlington, Virginia, and after college joined the Army. Spent 20 years in the Army, most of that overseas and most of that flying helicopters. And when we retired in Germany, it's the last place I lived, we were in a very fortunate position where we could move anywhere in the world that we wanted to be. And we stared at a map and chose Franklin, Tennessee. And it's been great. I have a wife and 4 kids, and everybody loves the decision. We're very happy here.
Awesome. Can you tell me, as a challenger to the current alderman, what kind of knowledge or expertise would you bring to your ward that you feel is not already there?
Well, the experience of serving others for 20 years, and in the military, in the Army, always working as a part of a team, whether it's a team of 1,000 or a team of 2, somewhere in between, always working with others to solve problems. As a retired Army officer, my integrity is one of my most prized possessions. I'd never do anything to compromise it. I'm a hard worker. I'm retired. I have the time and desire to do this. I'm the best person for the job. I wouldn't run if I wasn't. This isn't about me. It's about the community.
So do you feel like there are issues that are not being dealt with in that ward currently?
Well, there are. Where there's traffic problems throughout the city, we have more than our fair share in Ward 1, which includes all of Cool Springs on both sides of the interstate. And the traffic, particularly on Carruthers and East McEwen, our roads are failing there, which means the level of service is below a C. And our zoning ordinance requires all the roads in the city to be at least a level of C or better. Excuse me. And those roads are not on the capital improvement plan. At the beginning of the year, the aldermen, all 8 of them, put together a list of what they think the most important projects in the city are, make one big list and rank them. And it came out with a list of 66 projects around the city that need to be done. Widening those roads, we're on that list. The city commissioned a traffic study a few years ago for that Carruthers corridor and that East McEwen. And the results of that study said that we need to increase those 3.5 miles of Carruthers from 4 lanes to 6, and about a mile of East McEwen from 4 lanes to 6, and add an additional 31 turn lanes. And that study was done before Ovation plan even came before BOMA. And yet, none of those improvements, not a single turn lane, not a road widening, none of them, even on the capital improvement plan. So the traffic problem in Ward 1 is being ignored. And that just can't happen. And the development is great for the city, but it's making our worst problem worse every day, because we're building every day, whether it's commercial or residential. And those failing roads that they're not doing anything about are getting worse every single day. It just can't happen.
So if you were elected alderman, would that kind of traffic issue be your first priority, or what would your first priority be?
That is certainly probably the number one issue. I think if you ask, everybody in Franklin, that's probably their number one issue. And while it's not an overnight fix, the first step should be done overnight, which is simply putting the required infrastructure changes on the to-do list That's the simple part. Now, funding it will be another story, but it has to even be on the list.
I think at the last BOMA meeting, I heard discussions of widening East McEwen.
There's a section of East McEwen from between Cool Springs and Wilson Pike to a crooked one-lane road, and that is going to be widened to 4 lanes and straightened out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. So we are here to talk mainly about business questions. So I've got a list of business questions. So the first one is, what is the status on the proposal to replace the city hall, and is that a priority to you?
I'm glad you asked. That is on the city's list of 66 projects, and where they ranked them, and you rank all of them in a priority list, and you start working way down the list until you run out of money. I don't think I've copied that list with me, but replacing City Hall, and when I say replacing City Hall, they being City Hall, want to completely demolish the current City Hall and replace it in the same location for $24 million. And where it's at on the list is really next. Everything above it has been funded.
Mm-hmm.
So the next project on their to-do list, last time I saw it, is replacing City Hall. I want to spend $24 million to tear down a building and put a new one in its place, while we have road capacity problems that aren't being funded. I will fight that like I fought 16-story buildings. That can't happen. And I don't think the square is the right place for City Hall anyway, but it's here nor there. But you cannot justify spending $24 million to replace a functioning building when we have road capacity projects that need to be done.
Fair enough. The next question is, paid parking spaces recently became a reality for some private property in downtown Franklin. Should the city get in on paid parking or metering?
Metering? No. Up until just, in the last 2 months, you couldn't park in Franklin and pay somebody. You couldn't. It didn't exist. And the few spots that are there now, and I don't think I'm sure it's less than 100, that are hard to find for a lot of people. There's been discussions at City Hall about implementing paid parking in our 2 garages, but I think it's not worth the fight against the citizens. And it would cost a lot to implement that and put the infrastructure in place. And, how much do you charge? I mean, realistically, I would say if it's paid parking, you go from free to what? You can't go from free to $5. You go free to 50 cents or $1, and then is that really worth all the money it'll cost to get to that point and all the backlash from the community? So meters, no way. Paid parking in the garage, I think we could justify it. We definitely need the money because the city's $189 million in debt and wants to build a $24 million next City Hall. But I don't see that happening ever.
Williamson County and Middle Tennessee in general has been a hotbed of economic growth for a number of years. What is it that this area has naturally or policy-wise that other parts of the state don't have?
To shine the spotlight away from Franklin, which I really don't like to do, we have Nashville. We've got a great small city with big city amenities, an international airport, professional sports. Nashville, I think, for most people, is the initial draw. And like for us, and we were living in Germany, looking for a place to live, and decided Franklin, Tennessee. We decided Franklin initially because of Nashville. And if we wanted to move to Nashville, and we've got 4 school-age kids, you move to Williamson County because of the schools, the best schools in the state. And if you move to Williamson County, you get Brentwood, Franklin, Spring Hill, and for us, we fit in best in Franklin. So,
Explain that a little further. What makes Franklin superior over the other places in Williamson County to you?
the big draw, and I think everybody who lives here, I'd like to think that everybody who lives here either moved here or has stayed here or has returned here for pretty much the same reasons. And it's got the small town charm, good quality of life, the great schools, scenic views, affordability. We maybe have to scratch that one off the list. Definitely low crime. The developments in the area are attractive because the city standards are so high. Great job opportunities and green space. So that's what I think. Those are most of the defining characteristics of the city that are the draw.
Awesome. Some people call it corporate welfare. Has this area come to depend on corporate incentives too much for relocation or expansion?
No. And where we have offered large corporations a lot of financial incentives to move here, the financial gains that the city and the county receive from that far outweigh what we've been offered. And I don't know the details of exactly how much money or incentives we've offered to Dave Ramsey and Nissan or anybody else, but the thousands of jobs that they bring here are worth it. So, that's thousands of families that are moving here. It's thousands of people shopping here, buying groceries here, paying property tax here. Is corporate welfare, or is it smart marketing on behalf of the city? I think if they weren't offered, all the businesses are here wouldn't be here, because there are other cities offering the exact same thing. So no, I think it's a necessary, I don't want to call it an evil, but a necessary evil.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Some people call it affordable housing, some say workforce housing. On a chamber trip to Colorado recently, the local delegation was introduced to attainable housing. Do you believe this is an issue? And if so, is there a public role to be played in solving it?
It's funny. I've been using the word attainable housing for a month or two. Which is interesting. I hadn't heard that.
You're ahead of the curve.
Well, in fairness, I got it from somebody inside City Hall. Yeah, it's definitely a problem. We're not like neighboring cities who don't want affordable housing in their community. We want affordable housing in the community. We really like, as a whole, we like having a diverse population. Any way you define that. And we feel, when I say we, I think the general opinion of residents in the city is that we would like everybody who works in the city to be able to live in the city. And unfortunately, that's not possible right now because of the cost of living and as housing prices have increased so much. Heard recently that 61% of the county service workers don't live in the county. And 78% of city employees don't live in the city. They can't afford to. So, our police officers, firefighters, teachers, nurses, and lots of other folks just can't afford to live here. And they are a part of our community. And it is unfortunate. State law won't allow us to establish inclusionary zoning to create attainable housing or to mandate it. And I don't believe there is enough of an incentive that you can offer to a developer to have him build some $200,000 houses when he has the option to build $800,000 houses. they have a business to do, and they're in the business to making money, and it's unfortunate. I would love to find a way to entice them or to get more attainable housing. It's a problem. I wish there was an easy solution. I'm not sure there is.
Last night at the Board of Mayor and Alderman meeting, the city officials discussed a 54-acre parcel of land, and I think they had 3 people who'd expressed interest in that: a golf course, Discovery Center, and the Franklin Housing Commission. And the alderman voted against. They voted for the golf course. How did you feel about that?
I agree with them that the golf course is the best use of the property because the golf course can use all 54 acres. I think the Housing Commission was looking at using maybe 11 acres because the rest of it is just not buildable because of the floodway and whatnot. Discovery Center would be a great asset to the city, and I hope they continue to look at Franklin for location. Financially, the golf course was the best option for the city. It also leaves a lot more green space, which is great. It'll put fewer cars on the road, which is always an issue. I agree with their decision. I would like to see a Discovery Center somewhere in town because it's such the asset that it brings. And I certainly would love to see more affordable or attainable housing in the city. For that property, I think the alderman chose correctly.
Okay. Much of the infrastructure in Cool Springs was done in conjunction with developers who were required to contribute to support their contribution to traffic volume. How do you feel about this? Is it fair? Should it continue? Are you concerned that it could discourage economic development?
I don't think you can do anything to discourage economic development in Franklin right now. Is it fair? No, it's not fair, because we should have been charging them more. And I know City Hall realizes that and has recently increased, within the past year, increased what we were charging them. And the road impact fees are supposed to go towards increasing road capacity that is necessary by the vehicle trips generated by that development. So if you got 18,000 cars on the road going through there every day, and they're just going to provide, they're just adding another 1,000, we wouldn't expect them to, or require them to pay to widen the entire road. So each developer is not paying enough to really help the problem. Mm-hmm.
How can we protect green space while upholding property rights?
I'm going to take advantage of the opportunity here to say 2 words. Over the last 2 years, I've been to pretty much every BOMA meeting and every planning commission meetings. 2 words I've never heard used together: wildlife habitat. Mm-hmm. Preserving green space and allowing homeowners or property owners to do what they want to do. Individual owners, unless we change ordinances, people should have the right to do what they want on their property. And we hope that people that own acreage and green space would do so wisely, use it wisely. Now, when developers come and buy it, if they're building residential property, I believe that the city imposes a requirement that 50% of the development be green space or open space. Although if it's a commercial development, that requirement's not there, which I don't really agree with, particularly in Ward 1, because we have so much commercial development. I'd love to see them have a requirement to have to keep 50% green space like they do, same developer would have to do if he was building houses. I would like to see that. I would like to see more efforts to maintain green space as we continue to grow.
So you mentioned wildlife habitat. Can you talk about would you like to see that happen?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, every acre that's developed is one less acre that the local wildlife have to live in, and we're displacing them. So we've got deer going through our neighborhoods. We've got foxes going through the neighborhoods. I've got coyotes and rabbits and possum, and it's turned into a little zoo out there because we've taken their homes. And I couldn't tell you how many hundreds of acres have been developed in the last few years, but yeah, I would like to see something done about that in terms of maybe identifying whether it's a property or something. My opinion is something needs to be done because it's a problem. We are dislocating hundreds, if not thousands, of local wildlife, and we've got people hitting them on the streets, and it's incredibly unfortunate for the animal, but it's also damaging personal property and injuring people, and it's because it's not part of the thought process in development, design, or approval.
Where do you think such a habitat could be placed in the city?
Only if where there's acreage and connected acreage, and it's there and already. It's easy to say on the outskirts surrounding the edge of the city where there's a lot of still open or vacant property, where the southwest quadrant of McHatcher someday will be just forest. It's beautiful. I would love to see, let's mention it and ask the specific question, I would love to see that when that section of McHatcher's completed, that my grandchildren will insist while that road's being built that the area be preserved as wildlife habitat. And something I've seen frequently in Europe, where there are bridges over the roads that are green space. It's a place where wildlife can get from one side of the street to the other just by walking over this grass and tree covered bridge. And that's great, obviously. Yeah, that would be amazing to have that designated as a wildlife preserve if that's possible.
Do you expect new urbanism like West Haven to be the dominant form of residential development in the future, or will suburban models of the past be what we see?
Here in Franklin, I don't think that one will be dominant than the other. I know the city prefers the mixed-use developments because in theory, it puts fewer cars on the road. If you can live and shop and go to school and go to work all in the same development, that's a lot of traffic that's not being put on the roads, which is the reason why the city loves it so much. And I think it's a great concept too. I think the way West Haven has done it is great. I think the way Berry Farms is doing it is awesome. I think Ovation should never have been approved. There's a point at which it goes from great to really inappropriate for Franklin. But we're getting, I expect we've got more single-family homes being built in normal subdivisions than we have dwellings in mixed-use developments. So I think we have room for more of the mixed-use developments, and I'd like to see them because they are great when they're done well. But will they dominate? No.
What do you think is the key balance to strike when doing these mixed-use residential developments because you seem to think Ovation was going too far. Can you explain that?
I wish I had the numbers from Ovation in my head still, but I haven't had that conversation in a while. But it was putting tens of thousands of vehicle trips on the roads every day onto Carruthers and East McEwen, which is already saturated with tens of thousands of cars every day. And there was something like a 1.5 million square feet of office space going in there. I don't remember how many hundreds of dwelling units, a couple of hotels and restaurants, and it was. I joke that Ovation, if it's built, will require its own zip code. It's massive, and it's way out of scale for Franklin. There's nothing about it that really falls in line with the defining characteristics of the city, like we discussed earlier. Where's the line that between Berry Farms and Ovation? I don't know, but for me, I think it's tied to vehicle trips per day, and whether or not the infrastructure can support those.
Okay, so I have one last question to wrap it up. As a candidate for alderman, what would your priorities be in the realm of business in Franklin? In terms of economic impact, development?
Well, in terms of business, we need to continue to grow. We need to continue to expand. I'd love to see the physical footprint of Franklin expand. I'd love to see the people in the UGB want to be annexed into the city and give us more opportunities to grow. I think we should continue to entice businesses to move here. At the same time, making road improvements a priority. I'd love to see more small businesses, but we're seeing a lot of them being pushed out. There's rent increases and they can't afford it, which is unfortunate. But again, the city is $189 million in debt and does not generate enough revenue to get us out of debt. We're paying $5 million a year in interest on loans. We need to generate more income. Local population is not going to stand for a property tax increase. So we've got to find other ways. Half of our income comes from sales tax, which is an unpredictable income. So I do support increasing the sales tax by 0.5%, although all that for the next 3 years would go to the schools, which is great. Continue to grow and support, particularly in Ward 1, because we have room to grow and we are the desirable location for businesses. Bring them. But make sure they're paying appropriate fees to counter what that development brings to our city and our city streets. And welcome them. It's still a great place to be, a great place to raise a family, own a business, put your kids in school. So if you're outside of Franklin considering moving here, move here. If you're inside of City Hall and want people to move here, continue to entice them, but make sure that they're doing a better job of paying for the growth and that our citizens have to pay, or citizens are paying, citizens shouldn't have to pay for that growth. The development should ideally pay for the growth, but at least a greater percentage than they are right now.
Thank you, Michael. This has been Brooke Wanser with the Franklin homepage, bringing you interviews with all our alderman candidates for 2017.